This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
The very, very eloquent Jim Sarbh is here in studio.
Hi,
How are you?
You're very good.
Is that going to be the voiceover tone for the entire interview? I hope not.
Indeed.
As it is, you're just coming out of all our various digital devices with that ad of yours.
Yes.
How many people have turned around and said and told
Please.
you that you've watched it? They've watched it.
That they've instead said, please, can we never see it again? We're tired of watching your face.
Have you seen it? Have you
disturbs
seen
us.
his commercial?
Yes, before every movie in the theatre, that's the commercial.
Wait,
that
which
is-
one?
So wanna play anything.
You
No,
talk
which one are you
about
talking about?
your,
The card
Which one?
thing.
Which
The
one?
card
The
thing.
card, yeah. The
Oh, the
card.
card one.
It's
The
always
card one,
played
huh?
before every film.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
The
I
card,
mean, it
not-
could be random stuff, Shriya. I was just saying, you could try and cue the new Coldplay song, or you could try and cue a news item, and it's always Jim Sarbh. It's crazy.
Jim, how do you feel about that?
How do you feel about that?
I mean, I wish
When
I
you're
was,
not making doggy noises.
Yeah, I mean.
I wish I was known for, my like dramatic acting roles, but if you can't get anywhere with that, you might as well get somewhere with cred.
You know that we're going to chop that off. No, I'm just saying.
What?
Okay. Samit, my heartfelt condolences. How do you work with this man?
No, it was actually, very chaotic, but as you can see, very entertaining. I've been looking at these people's faces for months now, in post as well. And I know it sounds like I'm sad about this,
And when you-
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they were, really great fun. I'm only slightly haunted by the whole experience, but it was lovely.
And the fact that Shashank is not here, what is the excuse?
See, it's not an excuse so much as he's gone deep method. Normally you hear of actors going method during a role. Shashank has gone into house arrest after the movie is done.
Is he still doing his yoga, his Ashtanga, whatever? He tried to get me to do it.
See, I try very hard not to know what Shashank is doing at any given point of time, because it is never good. Like, he's one of those people where more information is not helpful.
No, but Ashtanga yoga is good. That's good.
No,
We
so
haven't seen
these-
him do it
this
on
is a very
set, but-
separate thing from Shashank doing Ashtanga yoga. So Shashank has gone into house arrest now. I have not encouraged him to do so. He's living the events of the film in real life now. I, however, unlike the film protagonist's family and friends, have no intention of getting him out.
Ali Fazal actually warned me about you when I met them the last time around. And I said, Shashank is nuts. So he said, "Wo Samit bhi waisa hi hai."
Yeah. No, Samit
Shriya.
is a different kind of a crazy person. All of us are different levels of crazy, and that's the best part.
Now I want to know Shashank crazy versus Samit crazy. What is that?
Samit crazy, like he's poker face sarcasm, and like he'll have these really quiet comments, which could be, even I don't expect him. He'll just like say something in my ear, and those are like the harsh, mean ones. So yeah,
Oh,
है
you're
ना?
that kind.
See, versatile actors telling you that you don't have adequate facial mobility is no reflection
I
on
love how he phrases things.
how you say or behave in life at all.
I actually
Yeah.
saw you conveniently ignored me. You were at the Prithvi Theatre inauguration.
Why would I ignore you?
You were sitting on the carpet next to Gurdas Man Sahib and you were transfixed.
Yes.
And I kept going, Jim,
Yes.
Jim and Jim and Jim.
I was transfixed. He
And-
was very good.
Yeah. You were just oblivious to everything and everyone else.
I think so, yeah. I was watching him quite intently until the second last song, when I realized that I may physically die of needing to urinate.
I know this
I
story.
was hurt. My bladder was. I haven't felt this in years.
Yeah.
Because
and Kunal doesn't allow you to get in or get out.
absolutely not. Also, I've chosen to sit on stage. I'm right there in the front. He's looking at everything, and I've taken off one button. I've unzipped half the pants. I've been waiting. I've felt like I'm gonna pee on the carpet on the Prithvi Theatre stage, and it's gonna be the end. So I finally ran out as soon as he's turned his back, and peed and come back in. And he still was going.
So you have been subjected to this too much information a lot?
No, we just did an interview recently, so I know this story. So
Oh, you know this
As soon as you
story.
took that name, I looked at his face and I felt the pain of
Yeah.
just
So
holding
this
that.
very story of Prithvi has been repeated.
It has been spoken before.
It feels like something
I
you
don't
would
do news
relive.
stories for radio. You know what I mean? I just
You have the best face for radio. He has the best face for radio. There's no doubt about it.
definitely.
You definitely. With a lot of cred. So, whose story idea was it? Was it yours or Shashank's?
The story idea started out being mine. Then I think Shashank and I did multiple drafts together down many years. So it started off with being a script that I did, which Shashank and I had been planning to make since about 2014, I think, which is when we shared it with Ali and he'd been enthusiastic about it. But
Real
it was
speedy process.
I know, yeah. It just took a really long time because I think it's only now that the idea of someone wanting to and being able to shut themselves in and actually enjoying it and it actually kind of took Netflix and the other platforms coming in to sort of normalize the idea. So we found that
It was that crazy, huh?
it's not. I mean, it's not crazy so much as I guess there was a disconnect between the when we were pitching it earlier. People thinking that okay, it's pretty much all set in one location. So is it a murder mystery? Is it a ghost story? Something like that. So the idea of what's fundamentally a comedy set in what's fundamentally a single location just felt a bit off to a lot of people. So, but I think post the streaming platforms coming in, there's been a lot of understanding of individual watching or watching on a smaller screen or having a less kind of group experience and more of an individual relationship with what's happening on a screen in front of you. So we found now everyone was quite easily, convinced about the idea and enthusiastic about the idea.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point he makes about how from a community exercise has just become a personal exercise. Do you spend your movie watching alone, with friends, or is it a combination of the two?
It's usually alone. I mean, unless I try to, if there's something which is in the theatre, I love watching films on the big screen. But otherwise, I don't watch films on my phone. I like to watch it either than on my laptop. But it's usually by myself. Unless I'm watching it again with somebody.
What about you?
Actually, right from the beginning, I really love even going to the cinema alone. I just like watching movies alone. I don't like having to like chit chat at interval with somebody, or I don't mind.
Even
if I
even
go
a
with
bad
people,
film, even if it's a bad film.
I still just kind of like going to films alone, especially if I think I'm gonna like it. If I think I'm gonna really like it, then I absolutely want to be alone, and I just want to enjoy it and see what it makes me feel like, and then walk home, whatever the distance is. I used to love it, especially when I lived in town. I used to do I'd watch a movie at Inox or Phoenix, and then do the 1.5 hour walk back afterwards, and just play the movie out in my head.
Where was home?
That's when my parents were staying near Napier Sea Road, so I'd do this walk back then.
So where did you grow up, man? You grew up there? You grew up abroad?
Where
do you fall out of?
I grew up in Sydney for 5 years when I was younger, and then back to Bombay, and then around a few places in town, and then I went to the States for 5 years for college. It's just kind of all over.
All over. And you've always been a Mumbai Simuli.
Yes.
So for you to meet somebody like him, with his worldview or whatever it is, must be really exciting.
Very exciting.
What a flicker
Very.
went over Jim's face when you said that.
His worldview.
Look,
or whatever it is.
I
that
believe
was
Jim whenever he says things, right? So, but I also believe that Jim is perhaps a cyborg, because there was this one evening in prep where
Like Schwarzenegger, Terminator kind of cyborg. Yeah.
a different kind of cyborgs. We are diverse in our cyborgitude.
Yeah.
So we so because Jim came in one evening and he delivered a scene around 9 or 10 different ways, where each one there was an invisible button being pushed and a dial being thinged, and he was just moving up and up and up in his performance. And I think both Shashank and I knew exactly which one we wanted fairly in. So, but we just kept going because we wanted to see, he dialed it up to 11, and then, but is there a 12? So I believe him when he gives these specific location tags of where he has been at various points of time, but it's entirely possible that he was built.
Yeah. So parts of me were shipped over from Sydney, parts of me were shipped over from the States, and the assembling...
In Napier Sea Road where the assembling happened.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Oh, wow. And, there was the memory chip fed in saying actor, or was there a foreman in Sydney or a cab driver or something like that?
He wouldn't know, right? He would be the programmer.
Oh, yeah, the programming.
Yeah.
We're still there.
The question is, who is the programmer?
Yeah. So Shriya was required for that essential touch of humanity.
Or humanity.
Like convincingly reliable sources human was required. At
I
least
find
one.
that you and me share a mutual admiration society with Shriya. We've only been saying nice things about her from the beginning.
Actually, even Shriya will say nice things about
Yeah.
Shriya.
Always.
Sure.
When have you all met before this?
We've not met before.
Oh, okay.
So, this casting process, was it exclusive to this gentleman, or was that how you cast everybody? Taking it level by level, or how easy was your casting?
I auditioned for it, and I had no idea about who else was in the film or nothing. I just read the audition scene and I really liked it. And I had fun with the audition without even thinking about if I'm going to get it or not. And I remember this, I don't know if I've told you. I got out of the audition and my mom called me and she said, how was it? I said, you know what, I just had a really great time. I enjoyed this. So then when I heard that I got it, I felt really good that, it just felt right, to be honest.
So
and I think
what
he had
worked
a
for you?
huge
Yeah?
role in casting me, I believe.
Yeah? But Shashank said no, and you said yes.
Who said no?
Everyone said yes. I think I was saying yes with a lot of enthusiasm, and Shashank is fairly muted as a person, as you know. He's very subtle.
Yeah.
Plays it close to the chest.
Yeah.
I felt like,
Cut
perhaps because... Good one. Because Ali and I had just done Mirzapur, so perhaps, they had those doubts as to, is this combination going to be too predictable? But it was interesting to know that we were individually cast for it, keeping that in mind.
Also, I don't think that, who cares? Of course, if it works and more people come to see the film, that's fantastic. But, are we still in the age where it's pairings and jodies are, either determined casting or not casting? It shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
It certainly didn't for this.
It shouldn't, but then, given the fact that was another platform and this is another platform, these things sometimes...
Yeah.
There's
They're tricky, yeah.
But you're saying you didn't get that at all, so which is good.
Yeah.
Not from the platform, at least.
No, and the thing is that this film was going to be... the plan earlier was that I would direct and Shashank would produce it. But then... I think Netflix and Shashank got together and wanted to work together on a thing where he'd also direct. And then because Shashank was involved, all these fine famous stars also came on. So suddenly the project kept escalating, which was again fascinating in many ways and eventually great fun.
So fine famous stars, you wouldn't come for Samit Basu? Fine famous star?
I have no idea.
He's lost the flow of the conversation. He was somewhere else.
No, as in...
He said
He
fine
was recharging.
famous people
Yeah, no, I
came
heard
on
all of
because
that.
of Shashank Ghosh.
I don't know. He would have to present a project to me without
We'll
anyone
have to
else
see.
attached, and
No,
then we'll
but
see.
It's also what I meant was that it's both intimidating and chilling to suddenly find yourself working with this level of talent. And I'm not saying that because these guys are here. Everyone in the cast and crew was fantastic, and it was sometimes very, my God, these people are all really good at what they do.
So who wrote the screenplay and the dialogues?
The English dialogue was me.
Yeah.
The Hindi dialogue was Shashank and the actors.
Because this whole thing about a giant bodyguard
Yeah.
and a slightly randy girl. Now randy word. You remember we went on a loop the last time around that happened. You remember?
Then, no. When?
When I had come.
Right, for our interview.
What's randy? What's randy? What's randy?
Yeah.
So yeah.
You were right at this.
It was, yeah.
Right.
It's
You were
a very quick gun Murugan Shashank kind of thing. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like.
But that was all in there already.
Yeah. So I'm just saying. So
That was all draft
screenplay-
one. That was-
it was all draft one.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all in there. Yeah. They're really quirky. They're wonderful, and I can't wait to see the entire film to really see how it all fits in there and things like that. So your character is curious. Is that the reason she goes to meet Ali in his house?
So the backstory is that, which is actually even in the film, that she's doing research on hikikomori, people who tend to isolate themselves. They're always on their gadgets, and sometimes it could be because of depression, sometimes it could be just cause. So there's no particular reason. So because she's already researching that, and a friend of hers tells her about Karan, she wants to go see him, and she literally, even though Karan is hesitating, she just finds her way to his house. And she herself is dealing with a lot of things. So both these guys find a different way of sort of dealing with their life. She overengages and he disconnects.
Wow. All crazy people. And you are trying to entice him out of the house with your randy behavior.
Yeah. You could say yeah.
You're not very convincing when you're saying that.
Well, it's not necessarily randy behavior. It's more like...
Because there's a scene which
Button
you sent to
pushing.
me, which is, you get out of bed and you're calling him or something.
Yeah. But I'm not being randy towards him.
No, I
I
mean,
just
in the
happen to
sense-
be in bed with a girl.
Yeah. So,
It's more like he's just pushing the buttons that he knows he can push because he's good friends with this person. Like when you're friends with someone, you know the things that'll rile them up the most. and I think he's just using that in order to try to get him out today. I think he's at the end of his rope, the friend. He's like, I've had enough. It's been too long. You need to come out.
And when you do comedies with Man in Box, eventually you think of the mother of them all, which is Jaane Bhi Do Yaro and things like that. How important is that aspect, or is it just one of the things that happens?
It's important. And certainly, I mean, I remember I saw Jaane Bhi Do Yaro again. Then what's that movie, which of course I'm blanking out now, where there's the dead guy at the party?
Death at the Funeral.
That one, but the 80s one, where there's this corpse and it's a party situation. Anyway,
The Party.
No. There's a very famous Hollywood movie where there's a dead guy at a party, and so I saw all of these things just to kind of make sure that there wasn't any overt, repetition of those beats, because I think that premise is hilarious, And what you were just discussing about Jim's character, I wanted to leave a lot of the decision making of someone who's watching this about what's happening quite ambiguous. So in that sense, Jim's character was the most challenging, because whether you decide to like him or dislike him is entirely up to you, in the sense that while he's being very clear in his actions, you're never really quite sure whether this is a good or bad person. And I have to say that it took immense skill to play it right down the middle like that. So we were certainly, because right up to the end of the film, Shashank and I were arguing about whether this character was good or bad.
Nice.
And we both had very strong views in very opposite directions, and his performance allowed us to maintain that conflict right to the end.
So did you film in just one house for how long?
25 days.
25 days in that
25
that one
days.
set?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this was like a morning till the night, whatever shift, as long as it
Morning
rolls.
till night, and I mean that house is a character in the film, and it became our vanity. It was our shoot location.
Was it a set or did you-
It was
No,
actually
it was a
somebody's
house.
house.
It was just a house with 100 shouting people in it.
Yeah.
It was getting very reality show like. I think Jim came once towards the beginning and once towards the end, and I think he saw all of us kind of morally and physically deconstructed by that point.
Oh, your scenes are all outside the house. You're
No,
the only guy, is that
but
right?
we shot him in batches. But so Shriya especially was mentally unraveling at a faster rate than the rest of us could demonstrate, because our features aren't that expressive. But we had just been there all through, and I think everyone else, so I had no context, right? But everyone else thought it was going to be a very easy shoot, right? But then with the Delhi sun deciding to move on its own sort of pace and scale, and people running around and there being choke points, it was getting more and more slightly, box reality show like, and they all did a phenomenal job of not just going completely insane, which I would have in many
so
places.
it's Delhi. Shashank would love that. That's home for him, right?
Yeah.
So he knows all his nooks and crannies
So
and
the
where to eat
challenge
and this
was
and that.
keeping him there and not having him run off to eat chole bhature.
Yeah, we had a lot of that on set.
A lot of chole bhature.
Yeah. All of us foodies, so there would be days when we would all of us would go out, and whenever these guys were also on set, we would just try and, see if we could go out and spend some time.
So what's your favorite character in the show, in the movie? And, apart from JD, you're not allowed to say JD. Why Karan?
It's a great.
Karan is Ali's character.
Ali's character, yeah. It's just it's a great part. I love that trope of the one person that's made a decision, but has made what appears to be the weirdest decision, but is actually the most normal guy. That's like being buffeted around by all of these crazy forces in his life that are all trying to, get things out of him, and he's just trying to hold it together. He's just trying to be there. I love that trope of character. For me, it's reminds me of Edgar Wright films, all of the Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, where you have one central character that takes things seriously and is trying to live a certain way, and just the forces in his life are blasting him all over the place.
So where is Ali? Is he doing that fancy film with Gal Gadot now?
He
Is that where he's gone?
He is indeed.
Hollywood beckons.
On his birthday, Gal Gadot was cutting the cake, and it was all very fancy. I said, Ali, don't forget our film. Don't
He
forget
should just
us.
adopt all of us, and say, where is whatever groupies who can come and hang on set or something.
I know, I can never understand the things he posts on Instagram because they're like, I feel like they're very deep, but they're very rambly also. So
But
I
that's
could go along
deep
as
and
his kind of
rambly,
text
yeah.
editor person.
Yeah.
I think that could.
So your favorite character would also be Karan.
Karan,
Yeah.
yes. Very, very well written character. And like he said, there's so much that one can do with it. And I'm sure we had a lot of readings and workshops before the film. So I can only imagine, considering how many we had for mine. So for Karan's character, though, it must have been much more or in depth.
No, it was the same number
Yeah?
actually.
Yeah, but I
It
find
was-
Barkha's one character quite interesting. So
Yeah.
since she's not
Yeah.
represented here,
Yeah.
I'll leave you, Samit, to talk about that.
Right.
What is
So
Barkha?
Barkha is the character she plays, Pinky, is is Karan's neighbor. She's also the daughter of a very well-respected Dubai gangster. And so, each of the characters have their own interior-exterior situation. So, Karan wants to stay at home. Saira wants to find out what's going on in Karan's home. JD wants Karan out of his home. And for Pinky, the whole world is her home. Like, she has a sense of ownership of the whole universe. So there's a degree of every reality bends to my will. And helping her bend reality to her will is her 7'6" bodyguard Rambo. Who
Where did you find Prey? Where did you find Rambo from?
again, we just had a fantastic cast and crew, and so the moment I said I needed, and my requirements were limited, that one giant I needed. And then all these contacts appeared on people's phones, and they mostly said giant or tall man. So it's a whole.
It's profiling.
I want
It's racial
to.
profiling.
I want to sort of start a year-long research into just people's contact lists and the words they use to describe people.
Wow.
Because for the longest time,
Like,
we
do you
didn't-
have irritating guy or, don't pick up ex-girlfriend?
Do you
that
want to
kind
see
of
how
thing?
you're saved in my...
Oh, jeez. No.
Yeah, but I do put things that just remind me how...
You do
Like,
that?
don't,
Yeah. Don't pick
answer.
up. Yeah, don't
For
answer.
sure.
Yeah.
Or like
don't
no.
answer. Huh?
Oh, no.
Just like one
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
One no, huh?
Yeah.
How will you know who? You'll know though.
I don't
exactly.
even want to. No, I don't want to. It must be something that at one point I would have. But there are some random people whose names.
This one is wants to find the, in quotations, truth.
Yeah.
Which means I must think this person is an idiot. And then...
Should we call him on live?
No. What else do I have here? I have some good ones. Tuna face.
Tuna face.
I have some numbers of drivers, the ones you say hi for a day. And because I want to differentiate between them, very good driver, not good driver, okay driver.
So you're
Stuff
taking the
like
rating
that.
things to a textual level, which I think is fantastic.
So, was this always supposed to be on Netflix? Or
It was, in a strange way, it felt like, so our first batch of trying to make it, we figured that it was, we didn't know that Netflix and the other platforms were coming, right? But we just felt that there was some kind of disconnect between what, say, people wanted to bring to theaters for your standard communal viewing experience and the core of what this was. So I had assumed that it just wasn't going to happen. But then when these guys arrived, then it seemed perfect because there was a great synchronicity between the characters in this one and the setting of this one and the whole kind of underlying mindset that would lead one to watch Netflix in the first place. So it was interesting also because a lot of the conflicts that we struggled to articulate earlier were very easily articulated to, say, this generation of actors. So, for example, the challenge between having Shriya's character be someone who the hero didn't want entering his house, didn't want her there at all, but was so immediately likable that he didn't want her to leave either, and this transition happens quite fast, was something where explaining it would have been quite a challenge. So with Barkha's character, who we were discussing earlier, we needed her to be both extremely charming and likable, and for you to want her out on sight. So someone has to be both an intrusive and a lovable presence, right? So we are lucky that we found people who got into that immediately, and this didn't even have to be discussed, because it's very hard to tell someone to act likable and dislikable at the same time. It would be next to impossible, but they just got it.
And I would like to add, Samit was really, he was my go-to person on set, because sometimes Shashank would be in a different zone, I could tell. I feel like he very genuinely, he could be very objective about At least, I mean, with respect to the scene performances, since he's the writer, so minute things, we could discuss with him comfortably without feeling the pressure of time. So for me, that was a very relaxed experience on set. I wasn't very nervous about perhaps if I'm not getting something right, and they could be honest with me.
So what drives you? Is it money? Is it fame? Or is it just pure passion for acting?
Can't be money or fame. Pure passion for acting. I think the minute you start living like you're chasing fame every moment, you're just going to be an unhappy person, because that's not in your hands. Also, with time, I feel like I'm really starting to focus on the journey more than stressing about where it's all going to go, because there have been moments wherein I've had this build up in my head and perhaps it's not led there. So now I'm in such a peaceful place in my life because I'm really enjoying the experiences rather than the trajectory, and that's happening anyway,
Lovely. Money, passion.
I mean, there's really no way to answer this question.
What rubbish.
To
Of
be
course
very
there
honest.
is.
Yeah, there really
You
isn't.
should be able to answer it because you do theatre and you do this.
I mean, I feel
this
like it should be evident.
spamming our timeline with advertising, and you do movies.
I feel like it should be evident from your choices. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think anyone is immune to fame and money. It happens as well.
Yeah.
It's part of it. It's there. It affects you. There's no way you can avoid it once you get to a certain level. So, I mean, it's the right PR thing to say of like, it's only the passion of acting and stuff. But I can't separate all three clearly and say no, yes, yes. You know what I mean? I think
That's
they
what I
all
mean.
are woven in there, and it's too tricky. It's just too tricky.
But would you do a crappy thing for money? In the sense, it's a part you don't believe in, but you're just being paid enormous amounts of money. You do it. Yeah?
I mean, it hasn't got there yet, so I don't know.
You don't know how you'd react.
I don't know how I'd react. That's what I'm saying.
You'd say no.
It-
You'd say.
It depends what it is. So, if, for example, if you frame it in a way that if it's a crappy thing but might be mounted well, for me, then I'd look at it from then the fame perspective that it'll be seen wide, by more people in that sense. But honestly, it is a luxury that I wouldn't perhaps do something just for money if I don't like it at all,
Okay, last couple of questions before we wrap. A concert that you went to that you thought was really, really cool in India or abroad, and why did you love that concert? You're not allowed to say the peeing concert, you've already said that. You're not allowed to repeat yourself.
Oh, I went to see Anderson Park when he came to Bombay. That was fun. I really like Anderson Park. It was at the Geo Gardens, and it was fun. It was really fun. I enjoyed myself a lot.
Nice.
Were you also there?
No.
Okay. Anderson Park, you like him? You know him?
I don't.
Come Down. He has a great Tiny Desk performance.
Wasn't that recent?
NPR Tiny Desk. It was like last year, I think. I think last year.
It's not a music act.
It was a music act.
It's a band.
a
Or is it
band.
a solo guy?
Anderson Park and his band, yeah.
Okay, Anderson Park and his band.
You should check out Anderson Park.
will.
I think you'll like
I
him.
will. A concert you've been to?
I was. This is a long story, but I'll shorten it. Oprah Winfrey's last show ever, audience show, was a surprise that her crew gave her at the United, the stadium, the football stadium in Chicago, and I was sent as her big fan from India. I was the only person because I'd written to them, and I saw Beyonce. And name it, like everybody perform there.
Wow.
Stevie Wonder, everybody.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and most of it was tears in my eyes because I couldn't believe that I was there. And that was the best. I mean, I can't even tell you. I get goosebumps when I think of it.
Fuck yeah.
So that was the concert.
I was lucky enough to see Paul McCartney in concert I think when I was a student in London in about 2002. And it was, nothing else can compare because it was my entire childhood and hearing that voice.
Why
And
don't we do it in the road?
So you two are going to be in town. Any memories of any... are you a U2 fan at all?
Nah.
You're not. Are you a U2 fan at all?
No.
yeah, but not enough to go.
Not enough.
I think when they put that
Katy
song
Perry
on
and Dua Lipa are in town.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, they're going to be in town next week.
Again.
What song did you say? So they put what song for
They
you?
put that whole album on my iTunes.
Joshua
without
Tree.
me
No, the
asking.
end of it is the songs of innocence.
I was like, I don't want these songs. Why is it on my Apple
Yeah,
Music?
it came as an automatic download.
Oh.
They did that. Songs of
I
innocence.
was like, fuck off.
Yeah.
It was the good morning WhatsApp message of albums.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Do you have a retro artist that you really, really like? Somebody from the past that you listen to?
Like so many.
Rafi ji. Kishore Kumar Rafi ji.
What is it that does it for you as far as Rafi Saab and Kishore Das?
I mean, just, when I think of a song, for me, I find myself humming those songs. I find myself humming Gulabi Aankhein Jo Teri or songs like that. So for me, and since Dad is also a singer and he's worked with these people, he has so many stories that he's been telling me, growing up, I've heard about these people and the kind of people they were. So for me, it's these guys.
And in English?
In English, I would say I was like a 90s, like Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls. And, I mean, for me, I love all of that. I love like good old Britney, So I enjoy that.
Backstreet Boys?
I guess that's retro now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That's what
90s
I
is
said,
retro.
I mean,
right?
Spice Girls is kind of cool. Backstreet Boys.
I mean,
it
come
comes on. I know all the
Tell
words,
me
but that
why.
doesn't.
It's like you hated, in the 80s, people hated Wham, but now they seem to love Wham and George Michael. It becomes cool after a point,
My parents unfortunately despise music and would beat me as a child if I would listen to any songs. So I don't unfortunately have the same musical background
Are you
as Shriya.
serious? You're dishing your
No,
parents?
I'm joking. And no, but they introduced me to a lot of cool music actually when I was younger. I remember listening to Bob Marley with them and think that was pretty cool that they liked Bob Marley. I couldn't quite wrap my head around it as a kid. And what else would I listen to back then? But now I have lots of throwbacks, retro music throwbacks that I love. There's so many. Stevie Wonder, Bee Gees, anything Motown, just all of it. Bruce Springsteen. I can go for hours.
Any cricket fans in the house? Do you follow cricket at all? There's a World Cup happening next year.
Once in a while I watch cricket.
Who's your favorite player?
Abhi itna to say, nahi. I always love Tendulkar, but not someone who I can say, I love this
In the
player.
current team, do you like what Kohli is doing? Do you like what...
I like Virat, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't really follow cricket as much to say this guy or that
you
guy.
a cricket person? You?
I mean, sure, yeah. It's fun. If it's on, I like watching it.
Who's your favorite player? You don't watch it. Don't have to be politically correct.
I'm just not a big watching sports guy. I like playing it better.
What do you play?
Football, basketball.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Love 'em. Yeah.
You're part of that all-star team where all the actors
Absolutely.
play?
Just played
what
yesterday.
position do you play at?
I'd play center defender or center midfield.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the same one that Ranbir and Arjun and all these guys
Absolutely.
play. Yeah?
So
Who's
we
the
just
best
played
player in your
yesterday.
team? Who's the best player in your team?
Who's the best player in the team? There's this guy named Anthony Peccori who's really good. Ranbir is good. Shabir Aluwalia is good. Arman and Adar Jain are good. Arman Ralhan is also pretty good. It just depends.
And Jim Sarbh is very good.
I'm pretty good, yeah. I'm pretty good.
Thank you, guys. Can't wait to see House Arrest. Cheers.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Jim Sarbh has done his bit.